KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Can you make my mic a little bit higher? I think it's a little low there, guys. And you're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show, AskBrien.com. Why? Because Ask Brien is only spelled one way, B-R-I-E-N. Anyone who spells it B-R-I-A-N or B-R-Y-A-N, well, I don't know why they're doing it that way, because there's only one way to spell Brien, B-R-I-E-N. And for those of you who have never listened to our show, we're going to go over background. But before we do, I do have to introduce, we have two co-hosts along with my great guest, and we have all the way, probably almost 40 miles away from us currently, we have the guest, Alex Grossman. Are you there, Alex?
I am absolutely here, Brian.
And
Good afternoon, a lovely Southern California day.
Yeah, and no one went deaf, so that's okay. And then we have, of course, the always professional, the always best person in the world as a co-host. Her name is Lindsey. Man!
Thanks, Brian. And speak for yourself. I'm growing a little deaf.
Well, until you're completely deaf, it hasn't worked. We have a great host today. Great guest on today. But before we do that, I want to go over a couple of things for those of you who have not listened to Ask Brien. And I don't know what to tell you. Obviously, you don't know everything, and you're probably thinking that, oh my God, what's going on here? But Ask Brien is part of the AskBrien.com network, and that's AskBrien.com. On Ask Brien, it's a website, and on our website we have the ability for people to ask and answer business questions, ask and answer questions from a business community, ask and answer questions from an expert. We can match you up with an expert if you have a business problem. We also have every expert who applies and gets approved has the ability to add on videos, webinars, blogs, and any type of post information. But in order to become an expert, you have to apply, and not everyone gets approved. Some people do not get approved. We generally are looking for someone that has 10,000 hours in any one field. Why? Because until you have 10,000 hours doing something, you just don't know it well. Now, are there exceptions to that? Yes, we do have some exceptions. Occasionally we'll get on people that, maybe they only have 500 or 1,000 hours, but they really have some type of an exceptional background, certain items that they may have. We don't tell you exactly what's going to be required to become an expert, but if you feel that you're qualified, if you feel that you want to become an expert on Ask Brien, I dare you, go ahead and apply. We'll see whether or not you're good enough for Ask Brien. And if you are, then you can post your webinars, you can post your videos, and you can post your blog posts on AskBrien.com, AskBrien.com. Now, Ask Brien Radio is just basically a part of the Ask Brien website, and that is we like to teach every week something about business to our listeners. And if you tune in every week, you should learn something. And now, with any further ado, we have Joyce. Joyce, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, so you've listened to a couple of things now. You probably have an idea that how to spell Brien. Can you do that?
B-R-I-E-N.
Perfect. Now I know that you can spell. That's good. Point one. You might even be able to apply for an expert. We'll see. All right, now, Joyce, couple things. You own a company. What is the name of that company?
The name of my company is Buzzagogo.
Buzzagogo. And what does Buzzagogo do?
Buzzagogo is a natural products company, and our primary product is a product called Cold Bee Gone, and that's B-E-E with two E's, like a bumblebee. And it's a Manuka Honey remedy that you swab up your nose to fight cold, flu, and allergies.
What is Manuka Honey?
It's one of several super honeys in the world. It's a type of honey that can kill MRSA, can kill VRE, and it can reverse antibiotic-resistant bacteria.
Can you tell me what that means in English?
It's a super honey. It does stuff that honey shouldn't be able to do. It's there's several honeys in the world, and they're referred to as super honeys. And Manuka honey is one out of New Zealand, where those bumblebees or those bees, honeybees, are making special honey with their enzymatic activity reacting with the tea trees. And that honey, when you apply it to an infected wound, can actually reverse the bacteria's ability to create a biofilm, which is why your antibiotics aren't working. And then suddenly your antibiotics work again. So it's this amazing thing that bees can do, and there's several around the world, and each one works in a completely different way.
Now, this isn't from the killer bees, is it?
No, it's not from the killer bees, no.
Now, how did you find out about the bees in New Zealand? I mean, all that I know about is when I'm driving my car and a bee comes into the car, and then it looks like a comedy routine of me trying to kill the bee. How did you find out about these bees in New Zealand and what they could do?
Well, A, don't kill bees. And 2...
Even if it stings me?
Even if it stings you, because it's going to die anyway after it stings you. So, and they really won't sting you. They're just investigating you, so leave them alone. But I learned about bees because I've always been kind of a bee fanatic. It's something that fascinates me. And when I met my husband, he was fresh out of law school, and he had had a recent bout of hospital-acquired MRSA. And that led me even further down my honeybee research path, and that's how I landed upon Manuka honey, because at that time it was a very new thing, newly being researched, and people were exploring its application for military bandages for really dirty wounds, and it was having amazing results, and that's how I found out about that.
This is almost like a penicillin.
Exactly. There are several honeys in the world, and they're just starting to discover which honeys can do these things. There's another honey called Highland Scottish heather honey, and it acts in the exact same way as Manuka honey, but by a completely different mechanism that they have yet to isolate. So it's just, I don't know what the bees are doing, but we really need to take care of them because they're amazing.
Well, they pollinate as well. What about you mentioned MRSA? Is that what you mentioned? Because I
Yeah.
heard that's a pretty scary disease to have. And my understanding that can be life-threatening.
Absolutely, and they're discovering that when you have when you go septic, when you get MRSA at the hospital or you get MRSA in any situation, at the wound site you become colonized, and then you become septic and the infection goes throughout your body. So when they have discovered, especially with diabetic wounds and people with hard-to-heal wounds, that when they apply a certain type of Manuka honey, and there's many, many types, that Manuka honey at the wound site can reverse the bacteria's ability to create this resistant biofilm. And then suddenly your antibiotics start working again, and the Manuka honey helps reduce the colonization load, and you're able to get ahead of the infection.
And so is this what happened with your husband?
No, he had to go through 11 surgeries and skin grafting, and he lost the bottom. Yeah, his life was in danger, in peril. And I learned about this honey just through my research after his hospital stays. I actually met him just after, and he was still healing because he had been told he was always going to be colonized. And the doctors explained it to us that, yeah, it lives in your nose. And I thought, well, isn't that strange? And they said, yeah, most everything lives in your nose. We can have all kinds of pathogens, incredibly dangerous ones, living dormant in our nose all the time. And one of the options they had was to burst these ampules of alcohol, basically an alcohol-based product, almost like Purelling your nasal cavity, to try to take away the colonization status of your nose, to kill everything in there. But they were discovering that in doing that, you may solve the immediate problem, but then you may also create more resistant pathogens down the road, and also you kill off your entire nasal biome, which then opens you up to other infections through the nasal cavity. And that was the first time I'd learned that our nose was full of beneficial bacteria. So Jeffrey's MRSA taught me a whole lot.
When you say your nose is full of bacteria, talking about good bacteria, bad bacteria, what are we talking about?
It turns out your nose is as important as your gut. Your gut is where we restore and maintain immunity, but your nose, your boogers, to be totally blunt as a mom, your boogers, they serve a function. Yes, we all should. It turns out your nose is loaded with lactobacillus and beneficial bacteria, and by the time we hit midlife, we've really compromised that as much as we've compromised our guts. And most nasal products can actually destroy that biome. And once that happens, you can open yourself up to repeat infection. So your nose is a really important part of your immune system. 95 to 99% of everything we catch is through our nose.
Wow, that's amazing. Guys, are you there?
I'm here.
I'm just amazed. I'm just amazed here. I had heard about this stuff they call Surja honey when the troops were coming back from Afghanistan, but I never realized it was this deep. This is pretty incredible.
Well, I definitely think that you should apply to become an expert on Ask Brien, because I don't think we have anybody on our site that's an expert about that.
Well, I would love to. I'm just shocked that anybody cares this much about honey. I'm obsessed with it.
It's more about
well,
the
they've
nose.
been using it for thousands of years, right, to treat wounds and things. So it's not. I mean, before antibiotics came out, it was one of those, miracle cures, right? So it's just amazing of what you're doing here.
And
honey was found in the Egyptian tombs, completely intact and unaltered. So it can survive anything.
Well, except the bees won't survive that. But now, how did you go from? Well, first of all, what were you doing prior to creating this product for business? Prior
to creating this product, I was a school teacher. I ran an alternative education program in rural New Hampshire, and I basically had the sweat hogs, and I loved it.
Well, okay, I'm old enough to know what sweat hogs are, and Alex is. I don't know about Lindsey. She's such a young girl over there. But I mean, Mr. Carter. I got my hand raised. All right, so why don't you explain what the sweat hogs are? Because not everyone in our audience is our age.
Well, my classroom was basically the island of misfits. You either made it in my room or you were getting expelled.
Well, that's a very interesting thing. So that's what you were teaching, and then so you're teaching sweat hogs, and all of a sudden you decide, you know what? I'm going to create a bee thing. I mean, how do you go from school teacher to this entrepreneur?
Well, I know it was a complete 90-degree turn in my life here.
More like 360.
Yeah,
at least 180,
totally.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, I met Jeffrey later in life. He was what I call a recovering attorney. He'd been an environmental attorney.
I'm laughing because I'm a recovering attorney, but go ahead.
Right. And he went back to his software development days. He had started a company with some friends who also went to Rensselaer, where he went to get his undergrad, and they needed his software expertise as well as his legal expertise, and then it just led to full-time software development. So I met this gentleman on Match.com, and this was back in the day when that was kind of a shocking thing to do. It was not normal. So I met him when I was 30, and he was 37. And at that time, he was just recovering from his MRSA infection, so I was just applying all my honeybee knowledge and researching and thinking about how to keep him healthy. And then right at the beginning of our courtship, in the beginning of our marriage, my father got lung cancer from his service in the Korean War, from his exposure to asbestos on the warships. So that journey led me to a new phrase in my life, immunocompromised. And during his cancer battle, which was 5 years long, and I'm sad to say he did lose that battle, but it was a noble battle with a lot of good quality family time, he was immunocompromised. And so I had to learn all about how we get sick and how to protect him. And then
before you go any further, not everybody knows, what is immunocompromised?
Immunocompromised is when your immune system is tanked from your treatment, from your chemotherapy or a recent surgery or just whatever sickness you may be suffering from or battling. And my dad had so much chemotherapy that he had no immune system left. He was something called neutropenic. So we had to protect him. Yeah.
And so for how long did he last after that? You're telling me he lasted 5 years after that?
Yeah, he did.
That's pretty incredible.
It was, honestly, and most of that time was quality, good, fantastic time. He only went truly downhill the last 3 months. But that 5 years was, we had to always pay attention to germs for him because he had repetitive bouts of chemotherapy, and he handled it like a champ. The man was an animal. You wouldn't even know he was having chemo. He'd be out playing golf, having dinner, but we had to pay attention to, grandbabies can't come over when they're sick, and everybody had to be really conscientious of their germs.
Well, yeah, obviously, if you got the flu and you meet them, it could be a serious problem for somebody. And so this was happening at the same time you were you were just getting married, or what time?
Right. This was the first 5 years of our marriage we spent, and I, being a research hound, just kind of did everything I could to learn about how to protect my dad and how to boost his immune system. And I started learning about the gut biome, and I had already learned so much about the nose and how it was a biome. So I'm just the kind of person that goes down the rabbit hole of trying to learn everything I can. So then my dad passed away, and right after he passed away, we were then able to focus on how we were going to start a family. And we chose to start our family through adoption. And we finally landed on international adoption. And we got a referral for our first baby girl about a year after my dad passed away. And she was from Vietnam. And her referral was perfectly healthy baby girl. But then about 6 weeks later, we got news that she was really sick. And she wasn't just sick. It turns out within 3 days we went from she may have pneumonia to she has a heart problem to she needs emergency open heart surgery at 6 months of age because her heart is backwards, and we think this is due to Agent Orange.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's you've had a pretty tough. I mean, you take your father and your husband and now your daughter. I mean, like, wow, that's got to hit you like a brick.
Well, the good news is not being a parent yet, I think if somebody gave me that news now, I would go insane. You'd have to hit me with a tranq dart. It would be insanity. But because I was, she was just sort of a distant person to me at that. I mean, of course we were devastated and worried, but she wasn't a reality yet to me. So we were able to survive that process and press on and be really brave about it in a way that I may not be capable of now that I'm a mom. I'd just freak right out. So anyway, the short of that story is happy news is that she had her surgery and she's fine, and we went and got her and we brought her home. But that's when the word immunocompromised was brought back into my life. I was told she was going to be really fragile and that we should be careful because every sickness could be really compromising to her. And that's when I began to invent my product. That's when I went down the rabbit hole of how do we catch colds? I need to understand this because I am tired of being afraid of it. And once I began researching it, I figured out it's not that complicated. It's not that mysterious.
It's not that complicated. It's I mean, I don't know of any human that hasn't had the common cold or the flu or anything. I mean, that's and nobody's really been able to figure out a way to stop it. So I mean, I think that's quite a big, huge, not only a huge market from a business perspective, but also a huge thing that every human being has had at least one cold. And I can pretty confident about that, and at least anyone over 10.
Yeah, and we all hate it, right? It's miserable.
Well, yeah, especially the cough afterwards.
Right. Yeah, and I was so sick to death of being sick and tired of worrying about being sick, and especially now that I had such beloved skin in the game. I mean, not just my dad, but this baby girl just took it to a whole new level. So I started looking into how do we catch colds, and it's really straightforward. And I know that sounds like a big statement, but let me explain. We catch colds most of the time when we touch our eyes, ears, nose, or face. So we give it to ourselves through our hands. Somebody may cough and sneeze near you, but it's actually kind of hard to catch it that way. I mean, I've had toddlers sneeze directly into my mouth, and then you're doomed.
That is a little funny, though.
It's the worst, and it happens to every mom. But then you're doomed, okay? Just accept your fate at that moment. But most of the time, we just do it inadvertently. You're out, doing something, you lick your fingers really quick, or you scratch your eyeball, you itch your ear. And then the germs travel from wherever you've touched above the neck to the upper adenoid zone, the upper nasal passages, and they latch on. And depending on the type of bug, germ, it'll stay there for 1 to 7 days. And then it passes its code onto your cells, and then your cells begin to replicate it. And then within hours, you have replicated this code millions of times over, and you feel that thing. I don't know what your first sign is, but mine's always the wretched, thick throat feeling. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's always with my throat usually as well. We're going to have to come back because we're going to be taking a break, but I had my adenoids and tonsils removed, so I don't know if I have the same adenoid issue. But we'll be back in about 1 to 2 minutes.
Santa Clarita's premier litigation firm. Jeffrey Hacker has represented celebrities, financial institutions, accident victims, real estate developers, realtors, contractors, businesses, nonprofit organizations, and other individuals and companies with their legal challenges. Mr. Hacker is one of Santa Clarita's leaders, consistently listed as one of our most influential. When everything is on the line and you need legal counseling, visit hackerlawgroup.com.
MB2 Raceway, fast, high-performance kart racing at LA County's only indoor electric kart racing facility, and you're the superstar driver. Motocross legend and DEI driver Ricky Carmichael and Team Andretti Green's Brian Herta race in MB2 when they're not fighting it out for world championships, and so can you. MB2 Raceway, located between San Fernando and Santa Clarita Valleys, where the 5, the 210, and the 14 freeways meet in Sylmar. It's MB2 Raceway. Dial 1-866-986-RACE. That's 1-866-986-RACE. MB2 Raceway, where racers race.
KHTS and the Antelope Valley Board of Trade are pleased to announce our first ever AV Sacramento road trip. We're taking 60 community leaders to our state capital to advocate for issues impacting our valley. It's a companion to our annual KHTS Santa Clarita trip, now in its 14th year. Senator Scott Wilk and Assemblyman Tom Lackey are pleased to partner with us. Our trip is sponsored by Southern California Edison, SoCal Gas, the Palmdale Water District, Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency, IBEW, and Northrop Grumman.
The stress was unbelievable.
Debbie Morris is a changed woman.
A giant boulder's been lifted.
Debbie called Made for You.
I'd finished a day of work.
Professional, residential, and commercial cleaning.
Walk into my house.
Made for You.
It was an absolute pigsty.
Weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or even one-time seasonal cleaning.
Our mess kept growing.
255-2922.
Even when we weren't home.
255-2922.
Made for You rescued me.
Men, are you feeling tired, stressed, or just don't have the energy you used to? Did you know this could be related to decreased testosterone levels? Luckily, there's a safe, effective solution. Weeder Prime helps support healthy testosterone levels with clinically tested key ingredients. Just 2 capsules of Weeder Prime each day can help change your mood, energy, focus, body fat, and lean muscle. Feel the way you felt 10, 20, even 30 years ago. Rediscover your Prime with Weeder Prime. To find a retailer near you, visit WeederPrime.com. That's WEIDER Prime.com.
Hometown, your hometown station.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show on 1220 and 98.1 FM radio show, AskBrien.com, with our great, and I'm going to do it really, really lightly right now, our co-host, Alex Grossman, and Lindsey Mann, our co-host, and our guest, Joyce. Joyce, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Well, Alex has been salivating, trying to ask questions, telling me that I'm taking up all the time. So, Alex, you're on.
Well, Joyce, I mean, it's fascinating. I have to say, I honestly just bought your product, so I'm really excited about it. And I had heard about it before, and honey, you know, as you said, Egyptian tombs and everything. But the problem is there's not a lot of us who have really heard of it and know about it. So how do you go from teaching the sweat hogs, as you said, to being an entrepreneur? I mean, there's a big jump from getting an idea to commercializing a product. So can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Sure. It was not easy. And if you told me today what I was going to have to go through to become an OTC pharmaceutical, I would have jumped ship. I don't know that I would be here today talking to you about it, because the obstacles, it was fairly daunting. So ignorance was bliss in the beginning. So when I started, I quit teaching when I met Jeffrey because we went to take care of my father. And then when our little girl came home and I came up with this remedy, I was just keeping it in mason jars in the fridge and then telling everybody I knew, hey, could you please, stick this up your nose and let me know what you think? And that went on for a couple of years with I know, it was a strange thing, but everybody did it. Right.
Some good friends you have. That's what I could say.
Very patient friends and
family.
family.
People tell me that's simple light to stick my fingers up my nose, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
It's good for you. You're populating your biome, so go ahead.
Oh, I'm going to use that down the road. Go ahead.
So I was just keeping it in mason jars and asking everybody to try it, and the feedback was amazing. I was getting this, oh, I had a cold for one day, or, oh, everybody else was sick and I wasn't, or I felt like I had a cold, but it was like the gentlest cold I've ever had, or I could breathe through my nose the whole time, which is honestly the worst part. So my husband turned to me one day after I'd been doing this for a little while and said, why don't we try and bring this to market? Ever so casually, like that's just an easy thing to do. So we began to explore that, and we initially just put it in little jars. We'd rent a commercial kitchen, we'd make it, put it in commercial jars, and sell it to just locally at little general stores in the area.
Reminds me of an old 80s movie called Baby Boom with Diane Keaton. You probably saw it, right?
Yes, that's a great movie.
Too old for us, but go ahead, Alex. Want to explain?
Yeah. Very, very similar thing. So go ahead. I'm sorry. Someone might want to reference that movie. Get your whole story. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, and let me reference another wonderful 80s movie. Remember Medicine Man?
Absolutely.
Yes. And so the honeybees are doing essentially the same thing. Anyway, people can look that up. That always fascinated me. But we were doing the Diane Keaton thing where we're just selling our stuff locally. Well, it turns out you can't do that if you're selling medicine. That's not allowed. And thankfully, I'm married to a lawyer who's like, hey, we shouldn't be doing this. We have to do this, this, and this. And that meant finding a factory, FDA compliance attorney, homeopath certification. So once we figured out what ducks we needed to get in a row, it took 2 years to get those ducks in a row. And we hit obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. I mean, finding a factory that could handle the viscosity and could also do the FDA compliance and the shelf stability testing and everything that we needed, right down to recording the humidity of the storage facility on a daily basis. All of that took about 2 years.
That you got to be able to persevere.
And then you had to market it, right? Once you get all that in there, and it's great to have a product, but then you have to take the product to market, right? So how'd you decide to do that?
Well, my dad was a salesman. My dad, who passed away, he was a good old-fashioned salesman. I grew up in a little general store. I'm talking in the rural Maine, oiled wood floors, lobster tanks, the whole 9 yards. And he taught me the number one thing in sales is it can't hurt to ask. So on the weekends, when somebody would watch the baby for a few hours, I would go from store to store to store and say, hey, would you please put my product in your store? And before I knew it, I had about 300 little stores out throughout New England and around the United States, a couple here and there. And then I learned that I needed to, how do I expand this? And that meant going to my first trade show. And then I got on this platform online called Range Me, which is like a digital trade show. It's perpetual. And then stores and retailers can find you all the time. And that's how I grew the company.
Range Me is spelled how? RANGEME?
Yep. RangeMe.com. And it's a genius tool where it's just sort of a virtual trade show. And you can get your product in front of all of the buyers.
Wow, that is very interesting. So
so I noticed that you have some pretty big ones, right? You have CVS and, of course, Amazon, which is great. And did those come from your Range Me work that you did?
The CVS vendors did come through that, and Amazon, we just went through the certification process to be an OTC remedy on Amazon, which was its own 3-month process. You can't just list on Amazon as a pharmaceutical. You have to be approved. So that took some time. And again, Jeffrey's genius lawyer mind helped me through that process. So
probably saves you a lot of money, too. The lawyers are expensive. We all know that.
They're not very expensive, Paul. What are you talking about? There was an interesting story that I know about, and Alex and the listeners are going to want to listen to this as well as Lindsey. Tell us about the Boston Red Sox.
Wow. Okay, so I'm a good New England girl. My father raised me.
And by the way, I'm a Yankee fan, so goodbye Red Sox, but go ahead.
Boo. So I like to say that my dad raised me up proper, and I was paying attention to the Red Sox about 3 years ago, and they had just finished spring training, and they went to Fenway, and it was all over Nesson that they were all sick, and they were playing poorly because everybody was sick. So I went and I looked at the administrative office list, and I saw this one name, Russell Noir, And he is this amazing Samoan guy, older, long, white ponytail. And Kurt Schilling had brought him to the team during the 2004, the big win, when they broke the curse. And he's a massage therapist and an alternative medicine guy. And he had sort of become an institution with the team. They're almost superstitious about this guy. He's a guru for them. So I thought, if anybody's going to get my mission, I'm going to send Colby-Gon to this guy. So I packaged it up and I sent it off. Now, I didn't think anything of it. I like to put these things out in the universe and just see what happens, because that's what my father taught me to do. So about a month and a half later, I get an email at 1 a.m. from Russell Newmont, and I'd honestly forgotten I'd done it. And it said, hey, can you please deliver 23 bottles to Fenway tomorrow morning? Now, the next day was Mother's Day. So I wake my poor husband up in the middle of the night, and I show him the email, and I was like, do you think this is real? And he's like, oh, my God, yes, there's 23 guys on the roster. That's why he wants 23 bottles. And, of course, that was the validating thing for him. So I packaged my husband up, and I sent him off to Fenway, and he had the greatest day of his life. I stayed home with the babies because it was Mother's Day. And he delivered my product to the Red Sox, and they have been using it consistently for 3 years now. I deliver it twice a year to spring training and here to Fenway, and I am officially now a sponsor of the Boston Red Sox. I even got to have a banner at the spring training facility. Woohoo!
Well, I would have said boo-hoo because the Red Sox, but go ahead.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And so those sponsorships like that are really good. I mean, to a smaller business, they really make it take off. Now, let's go one more step on the whole entrepreneurial piece. So you're basically working out of your house. You have this commercial kitchen. Now you have to hire employees, do this as a full-time business. And have you built it where it's more of a remote business or more of a local business? How do you approach that in modern times, so to speak, starting a new business?
Well, we learned very early on that the commercial kitchen was something we could do once. We learned very quickly that it had to go straight to a factory. So we found a factory out of Texas that one of the top homeopathic factories in the country that does natural product supplements, that follows all the FDA regulations to it. So our business is done through them. But everything else in our company is just done with me, a laptop, in my house, from our Airstream, wherever I am.
Wow, that's a real success story, and that shows the power of outsourcing to someone. And I just want to hit two things real quick, and I'll let these guys take it. But you talked about OTC, which I assume is over-the-counter, and you talked about homeopathic, which still had to go through some FDA, correct? So you still were regulated even at that level.
Right. We had to go through an FDA compliance attorney, have him review all of our packaging, and then we went through Robert Lang, one of the top homeopathic certification guys in the country, to review our formulation, because you can only sell in the United States if you're a food, an actual pharmaceutical, or an OTC like I am. So you can only be one of those three things, and you can only be an OTC if you are a homeopathic. So we had to go that route in order to be legal to sell in the United States. I cannot just hand you my wonderful little secret honey recipe and say, hey, shove this up your nose. It has to fall within their parameters.
Do you have anything international?
Not yet, no.
And is that because of the regulations in other countries, or is it because you just didn't want to expand beyond the U.S. until you built it up?
Exactly. I haven't wanted to expand, although we've been approached by 2 exporters for Dubai and Qatar, and I forgot the third one. But it's a Middle Eastern exporter that wants to get it into those countries because the regulations are actually not as stringent as other countries, and they have a year-round flu season because of the dryness. And the doctor that wants to export and promote my product understands that it actually helps retain moisture and helps you basically have healthy boogers to fight off cold and flu year-round. So
probably
that's
don't have a lot of bees there, too.
Right. No, they do, actually.
They do. I would think the international country, being someone who lives in New Hampshire, would be Canada. Yay.
Yeah. I'll work on that.
I mean, certainly it's close enough, right? I mean, I think Canada is probably closer than California. So how did you get to now, how you told me earlier that CVS in California has these. Is it just in the California locations, and why would it be just in California, not nationwide?
It is actually, it's nationwide, but we have the largest presence in California. I think we're in almost every single CVS in California on a dedicated end cap. Turns out CVS is just rebranding and reaching out into the natural products realm much more so than a lot of stores. So just recently, they've got a dedicated end cap to just honeybee products, and we are featured prominently on that. You can go find us right now.
Well, what about a company like Whole Foods, which is part of Amazon? Are you in those stores? And if not,
no, I'm not in any Whole Foods. I have been picked up and embraced, strangely, by the mainstream stores.
I want to take it back a little bit to differentiation too. So I noticed your company name is different than your product name. Your product name is Cold Be Gone, I believe. That's where it is. And so how did you differentiate yourself? Because you mentioned a bunch of honeybee products that are out there. I've seen some. I'm in California, so obviously we do everything natural as much as we can and try to be good. But how do you differentiate yourself from some of the other stuff that's out there?
Well, we are a nasal swab, and that's unusual. There's only a couple other products that approach it from the swabbing angle, and the reason I chose that is because I'm a big baby that cannot do nasal sprays or neti pots. I've tried and tried and tried. And it turns out when you use a spray or a neti pot, in order to have that viscosity, you have to have such a high saline content to control bacteria, or if it's a honey product, to thin it out, you have to use sodium benzoate, chemicals, or alcohol. So if you look at most other nasal sprays or products that are targeted to the nose, they're going to have those things in them, and that's all super detrimental to the nasal biome health. And so I went the route of nasal swab, and I'm one of only 2 in the market today, and the other one, the primary ingredient, is alcohol.
Why is it detrimental?
Because it destroys all your beneficial bacteria.
Yeah, makes sense.
So artificial is not good.
No, it is not. Turns out the nose is delicate and important.
That's what I tell everyone. Is Lindsey still there?
Yes, I'm still here. Sorry, you guys. You guys are just on a roll.
Well, you had that question you're going to ask, so go for it.
Well, I have a couple of questions, but one of the products that I've taken that's homeopathic is Cilium. Are you familiar with that, Joyce?
Yes, I love that product.
Okay, but it sounds like they don't use the same. They don't have Manuka in their product, right?
No. Are you talking about the little sugar beads that you put under your tongue?
Yeah. Well, actually, I think they have a couple different kinds. They have one. Yeah, it dissolves under your tongue.
Yes, that's what I give my kids, and it's just totally family friendly. And that's another thing. My product is family friendly. It's hard to spray stuff up your kid's nose. They don't cotton to that at all. So
exactly.
I like the sugar. Yeah.
Well, it's a spraying concept. It's the air, whatever.
It's just amazing, all of this. What I'm curious to know is how much did it cost for you to start this from start to current? How did you fund this?
Well, it was all bootstrapped, and because I'm a frugal New Englander, everything was done on a shoestring, and it was done slowly, which I thought was a bad thing, but now it has worked in our favor because the patience has really paid off. And in doing it that way, I think that it allowed us to build a really strong foundation, so now we're in a great position for more rapid growth. But I would say it probably cost us $60,000 to come to market with the FDA compliance and I did all the packaging design myself. My husband did the graphics. I would find a little local New England company to cut me a deal. I tried to work a bargain everywhere I could. And so I went to the New Hampshire SBD, New Hampshire Small Business Association, and their help in the beginning was invaluable. I had a mentor there. Her name is Hollis McGuire. Genius little lady, and she ushered me through so many obstacles and helped me find ways to save money. And I think as a female entrepreneur, one of the mental hurdles I had to overcome was that guilt you feel about I'm spending family funds on a dream. Mm-hmm. I don't know that male entrepreneurs suffer from that guilt as heavily as a mom entrepreneur does.
We don't.
No, we don't suffer at all, believe me. We just forge ahead, destroying our entire lives. Everything's good. Family comes with it.
Yeah, Yeah, and I couldn't do. I had a lot of guilt. I had to overcome that. And Hollis was, as a female mentor and an older, she's an angel investor and an older businesswoman. She would nurture me through these I guess hang-ups I would develop. But anyway, in the end, I applied actually just last spring to a female angel group that invests only in New Hampshire women-led companies, and I got my first round of angel funding, and that is what allowed to get into CVS. Yeah.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We have about 30 seconds left before we have to go to commercial break. Quick question. Do you have a patent?
No, it's a recipe, so it's a secret recipe. I'm like Coca-Cola. I'm going to have to kill you if I tell you the recipe.
Or if I find the combination to the safe. Okay.
Right.
Well, what about the companies that are producing it for you? They've got the recipe.
No, they don't. I'm very crafty.
We're going to talk about that when we come back. We'll be right back after this short break.
My favorite restaurant in Santa Clarita? Salt Creek Grill, of course. Great food, neat atmosphere.
For a business lunch or romantic dinner, I'll always go to Salt Creek.
Hi, I'm Greg Amsler, owner of Salt Creek Grill. We have created Salt Creek to provide you with the most comfortable and inviting restaurant in Santa Clarita. Enjoy fresh mesquite grilled fish, aged steaks, and the best chops imaginable. There's entertainment every Friday and Saturday night, and we have the best Sunday brunch in town. Salt Creek is on Town Center Drive in Valencia.
If you have a business problem, if someone doesn't honor their agreement and you need an aggressive attorney with over 27 years experience, the Law Office of Peter Bronstein has helped partners resolve disputes, franchisees resolve disputes, and other business owners who have a challenge. Let the Law Office of Peter Bronstein take your stress away. Visit lacorporateattorney.com. Don't wait too long and lose your rights. Solve your business challenge problem today. Visit lacorporateattorney.com.
Starting a landscape project? SCV Water is available to help you from start to finish. At their free gardening classes, you'll learn planning, design, and budget, plant selection and care, irrigation and maintenance, sustainable landscape basics, and so much more. Visit yourscvwater.com for a schedule of free gardening classes. That's yourscvwater.com.
If you have a business problem, if someone doesn't honor their agreement and you need an aggressive attorney with over 27 years experience, the Law Office of Peter Bronstein has helped partners resolve disputes, franchisees resolve disputes, and other business owners who have a challenge. Let the Law Office of Peter Bronstein take your stress away. Visit lacorporateattorney.com. Don't wait too long and lose your rights. Solve your business challenge problem today. Visit lacorporateattorney.com.
It's like no other station I've ever listened to. It's great.
Your hometown station.
Welcome to the Ask Brien Show. The following is paid programming and does not necessarily reflect the opinions of KHTS or its ownership.
Welcome back. You're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM, the Ask Brien Radio Show, AskBrien.com. And we got our co-host, Alex Grossman. Lindsey Mann is on assignment, so she had to leave. And we have Joyce. And we were talking about her product. And, Alex, you had a couple questions. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, they were more specifically about how Joyce, as an entrepreneur, took this thing from the home kitchen, so to speak, to a big success. And I think you were starting, Brien, a little bit about patents and IP protection and going after, how you don't give away your secret recipe, which I think is great. But I want to touch on the other side of it, which is the secret recipe called marketing, or getting your product out there, getting the word out there. Now, I know, Joyce, you said, just to recap a little, you hit the streets, you did what I call the baby boom thing. You went out and handed your jars out and said, please put my products out there. And then you used a service that helped you to get that out with a word. But from a differentiation standpoint, it seems like you did some amazing things. You wrote all the copy for this product, and then your husband, the attorney, did all the graphics, which seems a little weird in my world for that success. All those big digital marketing companies should just go out of business. attorneys should take that over. Next thing you know, we'll have attorneys being digital marketing agencies. How crazy does that sound? But tell me, Joyce, what tools did you use in today's world? You know, we're always talking to people on the show about Facebook advertising and Twitter, and so what was your success story to do that? And when did you start? What years did you really see this take off?
I would say in the last 3 years it really took off, and then in the last year things have taken off tremendously. So since I received my seed investment and was able to get on Range Me and do more aggressive things that I normally wouldn't have done, like Facebook advertising and Instagram advertising. But beyond that, everything I've done is, like you said, sort of guerrilla marketing. I read this wonderful book way back in the beginning called Love Marks. I would go to the Nottingham Library, which is the size of probably your bedroom, and I would look for marketing books, and I found this little
Not Alex's
book.
bedroom. He's got a huge bedroom.
That's huge, yeah. Size of small country, but yeah, go ahead, sorry.
My. Well, I would go to the Nottingham Library, and I found this little book called Love Marks, and it talked about just reaching people on a human level, and I'm creating a product that every human needs. Everybody has a nose. Everybody hates getting a cold. So I just tried to think of it from that perspective of don't overcomplicate the message of this. People are either going to love it or they're going to hate it. And you just need to get them to try it. And people are willing to try new cold remedies because nothing new has come down the pipeline in a bajillion years outside of the usual recycled zinc or vitamin C, and I'm offering something different. So I just tried to be as genuine as possible, not try to be more than I am. I'm a 45-year-old mom entrepreneur telling you to shove honey up your nose, and to make my product, my packaging, my message genuine, appealing, and relatable. And then I just created a little Facebook page. Literally everything I did was make up my own rules because I didn't have the money to follow the rules that I would see, on entrepreneur.com. I don't have the money for those rules and those guidelines. So I just made up my own, and I would tell any mom entrepreneur, do the same. Like the chick from the movie Baby Boom, she made up her own rules. And I think that we have come back to a place, and I see the millennials doing this a lot now, where they're just making up their own rules and they're reclaiming a lot of small-time business strategies. And they're working.
Right. And I think that's really the key to a lot of that. I think the idea that, thinking outside the box. I used to work for this little fruit company called Apple, and my old boss used to say, think different. And I think there's a lot to that, right? Making up your own rules. We did that. It changed that company from a small company to a really big company, and I think changing the rules or making up your rules or being what we would call innovative, whether it's your product or your service or the way you market it, is really cool. And, speaking as a dad with a child that I could never use a nasal spray, the idea of putting that on a swab seems really smart. So I think you hit on some things that are just, intuitively obvious once they're done, but realistically a lot of innovation, a lot of work to figure that out. So that's really exciting.
Thank you. And thankfully, it's not a product that is a lot of other companies. It takes a long time to become an OTC pharmaceutical. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. So I've just got to get my brand out there and get my other products in the pipeline. We have a travel swab coming through. We have an edible honey coming through for tummy troubles. We have all kinds of things in the pipeline for the fall. So I just need to keep doing what I'm doing and build my brand and build a strong foundation.
Now, I just took a really quick look, and I noticed you have a lot of reviews, and they're all positive, and they're really positive. Now, do you have to manage those? Do you, in our social media world, we always have people who are doing review management. In fact, we have a couple people on the show that talk about how important those things are. Or is your product just so good it just is perfect on its own?
I have to be honest, I've done nothing with regards to that.
Wow. Well, that's even better.
I don't know how. Ignorance is bliss in my world. I don't know how to do that. And if I found out how to do it, I might mess that up.
You know what? I don't believe you're there. I don't think you are going to mess it up. You're pretty.
Not at all.
Pretty successful. To take something from nothing. See, you took something that was an idea, and you actually got into the CVS stores in California. That is, and in what, an end of 5 years with a product that you had to go through an FDA compliance with. So technically, it's not even 5. It's maybe 3 years max. Now, As far as your distributor who's producing the product for you, do they have nationwide distribution?
Yes, I'm with a national distributor called KHTS, and my manufacturer is a factory out of Texas. And that's another thing. You know, the rules, they say that when you get a natural product, you have to follow all of these rules of get in with a distributor, get a bunch of brokers, and your profit margin gets chewed up by all these people that come into the revenue stream. And again, I broke those rules, and I did boots on the ground, and I found that stores are also willing to break the rules. They're tired of paying all these other people for a part of their business. And so if you just go in and if you have a mom with an amazing remedy or an idea or anything, I don't care if it's cloth divers, whatever you've got in your back pocket for a potential product, a consumer product, get out there and ask stores to carry it, because you'd be amazing at how many people are willing to say yes and break the rules.
Okay, we gotta go, Alex. So we're gonna wrap up this show. But Joyce, what's your website?
It's www.coldbegone.com, or you can find me on Instagram or Facebook.
Thank you very much, and
Joyce,
have a
thank
wrap.
you.
Thank you very much.